Welcome to your reading for September 2025. This is Artemis, Oracle and Tarot, a space for those walking the moonlit path. Seekers looking to explore and integrate the divine masculine in ways that feel authentic, embodied and whole. This work centers on masculinity, but it's not exclusive to men. Masculinity lives in all of us, regardless of our gender, orientation or identity. Many of us carry unconscious, wounded or toxic expressions of masculinity, and this space is here to offer guidance and reflection so we can meet that energy with openness and sincerity. So whether you're male, female, non-binary or something beautifully in between, you are welcome here, and this is exactly where you're meant to be. My name is Adrian, or you can call me Ade, the creator of Artemis Tarot and Artemis Oracle decks, which you'll see today. These decks came about out of my own dark night journey as a gay man who felt spiritually stuck and disconnected from divinity after painful early experiences with religion. I learned that whether something is scientifically real or not is almost besides the point, because if we experience as real, it has power. It can hinder us or it can help. So I chose to change my relationship to spirituality into something that actually helps. Hey there, Sagittarius, and welcome to your monthly reading for September. This is Artemis Oracle and Tarot, a place for seekers walking the moonlight path. I hope that this reading finds you well. What we're going to be doing today is a traditional three card spread with oracle cards for the past, present and future to get sort of an overall kind of theme. And then following that, we'll be doing a slightly longer tarot spread to kind of further unpack whatever might come up with the initial kind of three cards. We'll be using a special spread that I designed myself, and I'll explain a little bit more about that as we move through and get closer to that bit. But to start, I'll just call in spirit and light some incense. And today we've got the moon incense going for you. All right, we've got that going. So without any further ado, let's get out the oracle cards and we'll see what's happening for you today. And just a reminder that the oracle cards that come up today, if you want to learn more about them, you can find out more by visiting my website, which is artemispalimpsest.com. That link is in the video description below. And also discover the other remainder of the 44 divine masculine archetypes. They're all on that site. And without further ado, let's jump into your reading. So we're looking for a card for the past for our Sagittarius friends. You've pulled the Uriel card here. And Uriel kind of represents a higher calling towards education, or as it relates to kind of self-understanding and wisdom, inner gnosis, which is a type of kind of knowing that can't be sort of learnt or taught. It's the kind of knowing that we achieve when we're able to look at ourselves honestly and without bias, and really know all parts of ourselves as much as that might be possible for a limited mortal with human kind of capacities. And then also the capacity for sharing of that wisdom. So we can't do obviously spiritual work for others, but by kind of embodying our most whole selves, it acts as a gentle sort of agitator to others to start to, become more conscious of their own repressed and denied parts. And that is what, sort of Carl Jung spoke as being the kind of the most significant task of any person is to sort of walk that path of individuation within their lifetime. So the fact that this is sitting in your kind of past suggests to me that you know, at some stage you've either felt a calling to go back to do further studies, perhaps something more closely aligned to your passions, or perhaps even that you have kind of felt the pull of sort of the dark night of the soul, which is kind of, I guess, a period that a lot of people go through in their life where they start to kind of sense approaching middle age that, you know, there's a kind of dissatisfaction with, you know, is this it? Like, is this all that there is? And it's because the reason we can have those feelings is because we have been directing our attention towards the wrong things, like status, or like wealth, or like clout, and, you know, without even kind of asking internally, like, are these things that we actually truly want for ourselves or need for ourselves, that our spirit is kind of yearning for? All right, let's move to the current. And we're looking for a current situation card for Sag. You've picked the Poseidon card here in the reverse, which Poseidon speaks to kind of emotional and unconscious awareness, and kind of navigating the undercurrents of our subconscious in order to, you know, like I was just saying, get that sense of who we truly are. Poseidon is like highly intuitive. He's highly in tune with nature, and the fact that it's kind of in reverse in your current situation says to me that, you know, perhaps with Uriel there was an awakening, there was this sense of commencing a journey inward, and now for whatever reason with Poseidon in the reverse, you're sort of feeling blocked, or you're sort of feeling uncertain, or there's a lack of trust in your own ability to intuit like what's going on inside your kind of like is inner cosmology. And I think as it relates to kind of anything with our unconscious, if it feels unusual, if it feels strange, if it feels like you're not doing it right, that's kind of how it goes with that sort of work. Like, dream work is incredibly abstract. You know, working with tarot and astrology at first can be really perplexing. It's not meant to be understood logically. And in fact, if you're searching too much for logical explanation, then you're overthinking it. It is a language of the body. It's a language of, you know, dreams and symbols, and we're not really meant to explain it. We're just meant to surface what is there so that it can fall into the light of consciousness. And then there's like a symbiotic relationship between our conscious mind and our unconscious mind, where those things that we surface and bring to our consciousness, then when we go to sleep, it unlocks a further layer for our unconscious to kind of continue sort of like unraveling. And that's this kind of continual process of like bringing things into the light of consciousness, then in our waking hours, spending some time kind of contemplating it without trying to solve it. And then when we go back to sleep, like the unconscious mind continues kind of working away at it. So that's kind of that relationship between those two. And it's interesting seeing kind of Uriel there, which is more, I guess, the solar element. And then there's Poseidon, which is more like the lunar element. And they work together, but they work in very different ways. And often I think for those who identify with masculinity as kind of like a primary aspect of their identity, sometimes intuitive or emotionally driven kind of led approaches feel really uncomfortable because we're used to more analytical and I guess being in the driver's seat rather than kind of going, I'll just kind of creatively play around with it and then see what emerges. But I implore you to trust in your intuition and let that part of your brain do what it does best, because the conscious side of your brain absolutely can't do what the unconscious. Like if you think about all of the processes even in my body right now that are being managed unconsciously, like it's far outweighs like what I'm doing consciously speaking to you right now. All right, going to the future, let's get a final message for Sag. Wow, 2 of the archangels here today with you, Sag. So we've got Raphael here in the future, and Raphael is the archangel of kind of spiritual healing, restoration, and emotional renewal. And I think, this really speaks to sacred rest. If you think about like the tarot, this Raphael is very much that kind of 4 of Swords energy. He brings a calling to sort of like value non-productive, restorative time in equal and opposite measure to sort of productive, busy time, if that makes sense. And I think this came up similarly in another one of the readings this month, that today's society has such an over focus on productive time, and how many times do you hear things like, oh, I'll rest when I'm dead, or rest is for no rest for the wicked, and stuff like that. It's kind of like we very much create this almost like hero narrative around like being so busy. Like, you go to work and, hi, how was your weekend? It's like, oh, so busy. And it's like, why do we do this to ourselves? And so I think, yeah, for you, Sag, in the future, there's going to be a calling to slow down and rest. And if there's one thing I've learnt, and I'm a Sagittarius rising, just so you know, so I really understand what it is like to get something in your sights and then have to like pursue it, because like you need to know the truth of it, or you need to know more about that philosophy so that it can inform your worldview. And we can be relentless, and if you don't take the time yourself to pause and stop and rest and recuperate, like it will be forced upon you eventually. And trust me from experience, it is not fun when the universe goes, right, you're not listening, we need to slow you down right now, because it will be a much longer, much more unwilling process, at least initially. So yeah, take it from one who knows. Rest and enjoy it. Like treat it as, loving yourself. Imagine that we loved ourselves. What a crazy thing to suggest. All right. So without any further ado, let's jump into the tarot portion of the reading. And I'll explain a little bit about how I typically draw cards first, and then I'll just give a bit of a preamble as to the spread that we'll be using today. I typically use a pendulum to select my cards, which is what we'll be doing today. And I usually select a pendulum kind of based on the content of, what's come up through the oracle guides, who I kind of view as almost like messengers who kind of herald like what the overall theme is going to be. And so when we're looking for clarity, I tend to pick crystal quartz. And when there's a sense of like some kind of emotional wounding or like tricky kind of emotional territory, I'll go with the rose quartz. And I think given like this one, what we've discussed, and the kind of like lack of clarity around, the unconscious kind of work, I'm going to go with the quartz crystal. And we're looking for anti-clockwise circles here. So, no. That looks like it. And we only need 6 cards for the Healed Heart spread, which is the spread that we'll be doing today. So I'm going to split this deck. I'll give it one last quick shuffle and split this deck into piles of 6. And then as I'm laying out the cards, I'll kind of explain to you each of the positions and what they signify. Alright. Now, crystal quartz and anti-clockwise. Yep. All right. So, healed heart spread. This is one that I kind of channeled or divined, or came up with, don't know. Earlier this year, after doing some shadow work and reparenting, like inner child reparenting, and then this kind of spread just came to me, and it follows the star format of the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which is an esoteric rite or kind of like a ritual magic process, followed by various kind of groups, including, I guess, like people who follow Hermeticism, and there was the Rosicrucians and that kind of, all of those wonderful kind of esoteric groups. And basically my understanding of it is it's a kind of a daily practice of banishing or like removing stuck energetic kind of elemental forces that can kind of lodge within our bodies. And I guess for me, this is all kind of allegorical language. The way that I sort of view it from a more, I guess, practical or psychological perspective is that certain emotions and indeed trauma can get lodged within our body. And the act of like ritual can be very useful in terms of kind of like mindfully releasing that which no longer serves us. And so whether it's magic, whether it's psychological, I don't know, but it worked for me, and I think it might work for you as well. So in terms of the star, we start down in the bottom left with the earth position, and this card also signifies like what's supporting you or challenging you right now. In the top, in the center at the apex of the star is the spirit position, which signifies what your higher self wants you to know. At the bottom right is the fire position, and it represents how others might be viewing you in relation to this challenge or what's supporting you. Over here on the left side of the star, which is the receptive side, at least it is for me because I'm right-handed, this is the air position, and it's kind of spirit saying be open to receiving this. And then on the right here, which is the active side, is the water element, and it signifies, the kind of active side, like what you're being asked to do, the tactic you should employ, the sort of approach that you should take. And then in the center, which is like the soul position, the soul element, it represents like what's in your heart right now. So what we'll do from here is kind of just uncover the cards one by one, and I'll give you a bit of a download on each of those and how they might relate to the oracles that have come through. So starting off with what's challenging or supporting you right now. You've turned over the Fool in reverse here, and yeah, the Fool often speaks to like our inner child, or that sense of seeing the world through kind of like fresh eyes. It can, when it's reversed, sort of like speak to a tendency to have become a little bit cynical, or to, have been sort of too quick to sort of like be biased in our thinking because of past like experience or past hurts or past wounding. And especially as it relates to like that inner child, which fuels like our creativity, it fuels our sense of like whimsy and play. I think, as adults, these are words that we rarely hear heard, like whimsy and play. Like it sounds like silly stuff, like people, like your boss would roll their eyes at you. But I'll tell you this, like that inner child never dies, and we slowly starve it of things that bring it joy over our lives. And the greatest lie ever told to people, I think, is that, you know, we become these things called adults, because I think whilst we certainly grow and we become more mature, we also remain that child inside forever. And you just need to get a group of like high school friends together and watch them act like absolute tits together to know that this is true. You know, that child, that teenager never goes away. All right. What higher self wants you to know? Yeah, this is the Two of Wands kind of like speaks to who the fool becomes like at that precipice of like joining adulthood. Like they've finished with their studies, they've, you know, thought about what it is they want to do in the world. In fact, they feel like a sense of excitement about getting into the world and, you know, rolling their sleeves up and making a difference or doing something, whatever it is that they're passionate about. And, you know, here we have the Two of Wands in reverse as well, which says to me that Spirit is saying, yeah, like something to do with your inner child or that inner adolescent is feeling blocked right now, and it's perhaps preventing you from tapping into your creativity, from you know, connecting with your children, or if you work with kids, you know, perhaps it's you felt like strain around that as well. And so I'm getting a sense here that, you know, if we look at Poseidon and then Raphael, that there's some unconscious work to be done in terms of reconnecting with your inner child. Be on the kind of alert for dreams about when you were a kid or about your parents, or you know, anything kind of that seems like associated with childhood, perhaps a toy or school memory. And right, like I said earlier, it's not about trying to solve it. It's about kind of surfacing those things so that when you sleep the next time, your brain can keep working on it. Start a journal, and I don't mean like writing like dear diary, like just like on a blank page, like at the center of it, write, you know, school, and then like a spider kind of like brainstorm like, you know, subjects, games, you know, sports. Like you just kind of want to do some free association of all of the things that, you know, the key themes in that dream sort of triggered for you. And then you basically just want to expand on that mental map. And that's all you really need to do. You might light a candle, or you might, if something really sort of like surfaces, you know, be present in your body while it happens. If you notice any sort of like emotional kind of release or tension, you know, just like sit with that, write it down, even just kind of go, notice, you know, that my throat kind of like choked up. You don't need to do anything about it. You just need to acknowledge that it happened without judgment. And yeah, then you might want to light a candle or some incense and then just get on with your life. It doesn't have to be laborious. It doesn't have to, you know, involve a box of Kleenex, you know, sort of like wasted with tears. Like, you know, you can go into it as much as you need to. And for some people that's a lot. And for others, you know, it's enough to just kind of like acknowledge it and thank the dream and move on. All right, down here in the fire position, you've turned over the Temperance card, also in reverse. And at this point, I might just kind of say reversals aren't bad. Reversals are watch outs. And for each card that shows up in reverse, like you have within you the ability to switch that around. It just takes some conscious attention. And what Temperance is sort of saying here is when we have creativity, or when we have productivity, or when we have, you know, sort of like inspiration, it's usually because we've transmuted something that was difficult or painful or not useful to us, and we've transmuted it into something that is a release, or is creative energy, or is, you know, like inspired. And so it says to me here that perhaps from the outside in, you're viewed as someone who is known for being upbeat, is known for their creative kind of flair, is known for sort of like being charismatic, and for whatever reason that seems to be blocked at this point in time. There's that sense of like being energetically stuck, and so that transmutation's not kind of alchemizing in the way that it typically does for you. And so yeah, that's the outside in kind of perspective. Over here on the receiving side, you've got the Page of Pentacles in the upright. And so yeah, this is spirit kind of saying like your inner child needs grounding. They need to feel a sense of stability. This can come through loving kindness. This can come through things like structure, a routine. It can come through, also things like, grounding. So going and standing outside in the sunshine in bare feet and just enjoying like the feeling of the earth kind of like rising up through you. When we feel that sense of regulation that's really embodied, when our inner child is kind of soothed, we're automatically so much more open and receptive to creativity, to the needs of others, to our own needs, and we can answer those from a much more resourced and open place. So be open to working with your inner child to provide that sense of security. And this is really Raphael work. And it all needs to be informed by that kind of Uriel work. So, it's understanding, your inner kind of dynamics, which parts are sensitive or may have kind of been triggered, and how you might kind of soothe them specifically, because we all have like a range of parts and they have different desires and different needs. Like my inner child is very different from my inner adolescent, right? They want different things. The inner child might need to be soothed in a more loving and caring way, and the inner adolescent is happy with some video games and like a junk food night. And so, yeah, it's knowing how to tend to the different parts and getting familiar with like the ways in which they kind of communicate with you. All right, on the active side, this is super interesting. On the active side, you've pulled the Knight of Wands in the upright, which, this side of the star does speak to kind of like the tactic that you should employ or the approach that you should take. And the Knight of Wands is not known for subtlety, nor for patience. They are kind of like, it's one of the strong yes cards. They can also be a bit fiery. They can also be a bit incorrigible. And I think for you, Sag, who you typically choose your targets with care, right? Like the Sagittarian is the archer. They slowly and deliberately take aim before letting fly, and then their aim is always true. The Knight of Wands is a little bit more clearer path type of guy. And I think that this, as it relates to kind of what we've looked at here, is it's imploring you to kind of stand in front of your inner child and protect them at all costs, and be that almost like warrior that they need to feel that kind of sense of safety and protection. And so perhaps the typical Sag approach of, kind of being really discerning around targets has at times left that inner child feeling a little bit vulnerable. And so I guess the call to action here is a suggestion that, not starting fights, like don't go around looking to pick fights, but certainly like when people say things that, feel like a veiled criticism, you might just want to call that out by saying something like, well, what do you mean by that? You don't have to address it and say, that's not cool, or like, screw you or anything like that. But just that curiosity of like, well, what do you mean by that? Can be a really good way of disarming people who will kind of realize like, oh yeah, that was a bit out of order. Sorry about that. And that's the kind of level of protection that our inner child needs, is to like, yeah, this dude's got my back, or, this person has my back. All right, moving on to the center. This is a really nice way to end the reading, actually. What's in your heart right now? Oh, Sag, I get the feeling that something has been weighing on your heart really heavily, maybe for some time now. And you know that this is in reverse here says to me that that's coming to an end now. You are doing the healing work that allows your broken heart to be mended. And from there, there's only love. Like, a broken heart is a sign that we've loved, and we've loved with passion, and we've loved with all of ourselves. And there's nothing to be ashamed of in that, and there's nothing ugly about that. Even though it hurts, like in the immediate aftermath, eventually you do get to a point where you can't help but just look back with a smile, even knowing that there are perhaps, you know, some parts that weren't amazing. At the end of the day, there's nothing more beautiful or more human than to have loved. And I think that that's probably the best place to close the reading. I hope that this finds you well, and I will see you back here in October. Take care, Sag. Well, that's all I've got for you today. So let that settle and rest and relax through it. Not everything needs to be understood at once. All of the cards that were used today, the Artemis Tarot and Artemis Oracle cards, were designed and created by me. You can find them on my website at www.artemispalimpsest.com. That link's below in the description. And on the site, you can explore the 44 Divine Masculine archetype profiles that comprise the deck, as well as find links to buy them. So do inquire about a one-on-one personal reading if you'd like to go deeper. And also keep an eye out for videos starting this week. I'll be doing one deep dive archetype video each week where I'll explore the symbolism, art, and creative process behind developing these. If this reading resonated, please like, comment, subscribe, or share it with someone who might need it. It really helps this work find the people it's meant to serve. This is Artemis, Oracle and Tarot. Divine what can't be seen by day, and behold with new perspective that which stalked in the night. I will see you back here next month. You've been watching Artemis, Oracle and Tarot, a sacred space for healing for those on the moonlit path. Join us here on YouTube for monthly tarot readings by astrology sign and deep dives into the imagery and symbolism used in the making of our unique Artemis, Oracle and Tarot decks. If having a space to work through the unpleasant but necessary parts of adulting sounds good to you, like and subscribe here on YouTube and follow us on Instagram so you never miss a beat. All links are in the description below.